Welcome, everyone, to RSA 2020. This is our first interview. I'm so excited. Mehul Revankar, did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
Awesome. And you're from SaltStack.
Yep.
And what is your role today at SaltStack?
So I'm the director of product for SaltStack, building out all the cybersecurity and enterprise products at SaltStack.
Fantastic. I wanted to just, for our audience, I know you've been on the show before, but give everyone a recap of what is SaltStack and then kind of a breakdown of your products.
Sure. So SaltStack is an ID automation and orchestration platform which helps organizations manage and secure their assets across the organizations. And the assets could be in the cloud, in the data center, containers, network devices, and so on. It doesn't really matter to us. And it's, all these assets are within our scope of management. And we do this with our open source project, which is Salt. It's a Python-based framework, which has had hundreds of thousands of commits, millions of downloads, over 3,000 active users who are committing code and so on.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's our open source platform on top of which we built our own enterprise solution for managing all these assets. So we have our open source platform, which is Python based, and on top of that, we built our enterprise solution to manage these assets. And on these enterprise solutions, we have built add-ons for our cybersecurity use cases. One of them is SaltStack Comply, which allows users to do secure configuration management with industry standard guides such as CIS, DISISTIGs, or even your own custom hardening guides. You can bring that into the product to do assessments and remediation.
So the open source is just called Salt, right?
Just called Salt.
And then when you move into the enterprise product line, there is SaltStack Comply.
The SaltStack Enterprise is the core platform.
Yep. Okay.
And then the SaltStack Comply is the module on top, which sits on top of
the module to do compliance.
Right.
Which is important. We work together in Tenable. We talk a lot about compliance and how, and configuration is really where it's at today. And that's so important because everything is configuration. You know, I was going through when you have to build out a CI/CD pipeline, you need source code version control, you need a Docker registry, you need an orchestration platform, you need a place to host it, you need an orchestra, and all of those are basically configuration, right? So getting control of that is really important. But Salt has taken it a step further, right? SaltStack has taken it a step further and moved to the protection, right? With not just compliance, but also with patching. So how do those come together, right?
Right. So first module is SaltStack Comply, which does the secure configuration management across a wide variety of devices. So but then
it doesn't just tell you that your configuration is not secure or not to a certain compliance specification. It allows you to change it.
Right.
Okay.
It allows you to change it with change control workflows configured into the product as well.
Yeah.
And the SaltStack Protect is our vulnerability remediation module, which allows you to not only find vulnerabilities within your assets, but also actively remediate them with SaltStack Protect. So those are the two modules we have built so far in the last 2 years. And in fact, SaltStack Comply is the finalist for the best risk and policy compliance solution for SC Awards 2020.
That's
today.
awesome.
The awards are the award
being held this week, right?
Yeah, it's tomorrow. So we're super excited. Fingers crossed. We hope we win.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, we've received really good market traction for the products we have built in a very short period of time, and customers are loving it so far.
And now it doesn't require that an agent be on every system that I'm managing, but I certainly recommend that people use the agent-based approach, correct?
Right. Agent-based has, for a good part of my career, I was on the agentless camp, and I've been once we started using SaltStack or the Salt agent. It's a no-brainer. It's more responsive, more instantaneous, and if things are not compliant or insecure, you can instantly run commands from the Salt remote code execution engine and fix things instantaneously instead of doing a polling operation, which might be once a week or once in 2 weeks and so on.
But what I really love is that I can put, because we still have physical infrastructure. Many people, you're always going to have, I think, some level of on-premise and cloud infrastructure. And we have both, right? And for let's just say the on-premise stuff or cloud, I put one agent on that system. It it tells me if there's configuration issues. Those could be out of compliance, or those could be, hey, dummy, you configure something insecurely, right? And they could be that you're missing patches, and the platform allows me to remediate those problems. All with one platform, one agent. That's
across not just operating systems, but even network devices.
So you have a vast support. Well, because your open source community, is contributing to some of that support.
We can communicate with, I think, over 24 cloud providers out of the box.
That's awesome.
Because
it's all configuration.
It's not only that, because we also get a lot of pull requests from the community, and they add support for Linode, right? We don't actively add support for Linode. We definitely support them, and if there are bugs, we'll fix them. We have an open engineering team which is dedicated to making sure our open source platform is robust, scalable, stable, and so on. But we get all these benefits of being an open source company, building an enterprise solution on top of it.
And now some of the new features that you've added, I think, are really awesome, right? Because you can take in vulnerability data from other solutions and apply that to this process that we just talked about of discovering and remediation. Right.
So when we launched SaltStack Protect, and usually we spent a long time of our career as a company in the IT ops administration space, right? So we don't get introduced to security companies or the SecOps people right away, right? So IT ops is our gateway into security, and when we come in and we make a proposition, we can also remediate your vulnerabilities. Well, that's the security team's job, and they have their own tools, and we don't have control over them, we don't have budget over them, but if you can bring in their data, that's of value to us, right? So what we did in our last release, we started importing data from vendors like Tenable, right? You can run a scan in Tenable and bring that assessment data into SaltStack Protect. And the way we have built our remediation logic within the product, we can bring in the data from vendors like Tenable, and in future we'll also do vendors like Qualys, Rapid7, and remediate them from SaltStack Protect. So the challenges they used to have before was, security would run a scan. Once they are done with the scan, they'll create a PDF report or an Excel sheet and lob it over to the ops guy. Hey, go figure it out. Go figure out a way to fix it, right? And then the ops guy on the other end, he's probably figuring out manual scripts, writing bash scripts or PowerShell scripts or whatever it is to fix these vulnerabilities. And then, hey, I fixed these vulnerabilities. They go run a scan again. Some of them are not fixed. They come back again, and the process goes over and over again, right? So with this process, what we have done, we have simplified the whole workflow, where you bring in the data, click remediate, and you're done. And it's all integrated with change control workflow. For example, if you want to make sure that only those patches that are approved by the application owner or the system owner.
I love that, because as a systems administrator, right, I know that there's a class of or characteristics or attributes of certain remediation tasks that any sysadmin, right, knows this. Yeah, that's safe, right? This stuff I want to do some more testing.
Right.
But the stuff that's safe could be greater than 50%. And that sounds like it can just be a continuous workflow that goes through SaltStack to just go click remediate, right? And then the other portion might require a little research and testing. Once it's tested, go through the same process. That's awesome.
And then what we see is, if it's a very small company, mid-sized to small companies, they probably don't have ServiceNow, they don't have any ticketing, or it's the second.
So ServiceNow determines whether or not it helps you take the action within SaltStack to say, this asset can be auto remediated, this one can't, and it's ServiceNow.
Or somebody can approve it in ServiceNow and send the job to SaltStack Protect, and then we can remediate it from there. But it is not a requirement. You can obviously do it within the platform without having ServiceNow. So if you're a very small company, you don't have ServiceNow in your organization, no problem. You can remediate it. And it's all API-driven solutions. So you can build your APIs around tracking what changed, who changed what, and there is a complete report of what changes we made to the system.
Fantastic. Any other new features that you're working on that you want to give kind of our audience a heads up about?
Yeah, so so when we build products here at SaltStack, we take a MVP style approach, the minimum viable product, and the approach we took here was, for our first pass at integration, we took a file-based approach. for integration. What we would like to do is do a much more tightly knit API level integration with Tenable, so that customers can configure their Tenable scanners within our product, and as soon as the scans are run, you can import them directly without having to do an import or export of the files or anything. And you can pick and choose what you want to bring in. So that's definitely something we are actively looking into, and as we go into future releases of the product, you'll see that taking shape. The other thing we want to do is we want to integrate with other VM vendors as well. So Qualys, Rapid7, all these vendors we are actively pursuing technical partnerships with. And they are also from their perspective, this is a benefit for them as well, because their customers typically don't have a really good patch management workflow in place. I mean, they have a really good, scanning engine in place. They've, spread across their scanners across the infrastructure. But when it comes to remediation, what are you doing? You either buy a very crappy solution or you don't do anything at all. So we are trying to bridge that gap. And then, some interesting vendors we are looking into. When you're looking into the VM space, one of the key challenges is the prioritization of these vulnerabilities, right?
Sure.
And vendors like Kenna are, running away in the sense that they're doing a really good job of prioritizing vulnerabilities by taking in data from vendors like Tenable, Qualys, and Rapid7 as well. So we want to integrate with, those, visionary kind of, or innovative companies who are, kind of creating a new category.
Yeah, I agree.
And, bringing in the prioritized data and then doing the remediation with SaltStack. So those are the big picture items. And we also want to look into doing a better job of just scoring the assets and vulnerabilities. I mean, when we, because SaltStack is managing so many assets, it's very natural for our customers to ask us, well, now that you manage our 10,000 assets, can you tell us, differentiate between which asset is important versus not? Because, if somebody has
So you'll be doing some of that prioritization within SaltStack as well, with a deeper kind of knowledge of what's happening in the network.
So one of the things we did at SaltConf last year is we launched our AI project, Umbra, the open source AI project. And we are planning to leverage parts of our AI project to help better classify two things. One is assets itself. Like sometimes, and the classification is very opinionated. It's an opinionated artificial intelligence in the sense that when we look at an asset, we know by just looking at hardware profile. Like if you just look at the hardware profile of some of these assets, some are more beefed up. The production assets, it's more likely that they'll be more beefed up compared to a test or a dev environment, right? So if an asset has more connections going in, maybe it's a web server, maybe it's a database server,
DNS server.
So it's very,
could be critical.
It could be critical. We want to get to a point where we can automatically classify these assets, or maybe the asset is connected to the internet, right? It has a public IP address, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So we've trained our artificial intelligence model with these criteria in mind, and the next time it sees a new asset, it applies this sort of an algorithm and automatically classifies. By the way, based on things that we've seen on this asset, we think this is a higher priority asset. You might want to look at it.
And I love that, because it's a lot of work to classify your assets, and having an AI engine help you with that classification is a huge help. It's a lot of manual work, right, to know what things are. So this is great.
Right. And
if people want to learn more, and they're here at RSA, you have a booth, I'm assuming, on the
show
floor?
So we have a booth, I believe it's 3129. It's between the North and South Expo. So, I'll be there pretty much all week. So, I'll be giving demos and whatnot. So,
if you want to see a demo, it's a great booth to stop by. And Mehul's awesome. Like I said, we've worked together, and he certainly has the technical aspect down and understands this problem very, very well. And you're building solutions that work in a practical environment, which is why I like this particular type of software.
Cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for watching. See you next time.